Welcome to the Pineapple Couch with B Rob. Today is March 25th, and we're coming at you for a trade deadline special version of the Pineapple Couch this Thursday. This is again the Pineapple Couch with B Rob, episode 86. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, as well as you can check out our YouTube channel because we put up weekly Marvel reviews, and sometimes we also put up some of the conversations we have about sports on the pod, and we'll definitely be doing that more in the future. I am joined today by Josh Bilker to break down the craziness that was today's NBA trade deadline. Josh, how you doing?
Good, very good. Crazy one. This is one of the craziest deadlines I think we've had in a while, just because one,
Mhm.
how late it is, and I just think that there were a lot more moves because of the whole playing games that people
Oh
are
yeah.
trying to buy and sell late. So I mean this is wild. I don't even know where to start, so I'm gonna leave that to you on
Yeah, well,
how
don't
you
worry.
want to
I'll,
break this
I'll
down.
I'll guide you all on this journey. I do think one reason that this trade deadline stood out kind of was I feel like there wasn't much momentum for a ton of trades in just recent until like the last 72 hours, and then things really exploded. There was one thing that really did shock me, and we'll get to that. But otherwise, I think there's some interesting moves made. I think
Oh, a
some teams
tease.
got a little
Little little
better.
little tease.
Yeah, a little tease. But let's first start with the big trade of the day, maybe the first or second. I don't know how we want to put it, but Denver and Orlando have agreed to the Aaron Gordon deal. Denver is sending Gary Harris, R.J. Hampton, and a first round pick to the Magic for Aaron Gordon. This is a good replacement for the Jeremy Grant role in Denver because they seem to be missing him from last year. He's doing well for the Pistons. Josh, what is your first take, first reaction to Aaron Gordon joining Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray in Denver?
I love this trade. This is my favorite trade of the day, by
Hmm.
far, and just the best move I think overall. Because I think you mentioned the Jeremy Grant role. That's absolutely what this was to address, is try to replace some of those JaMychal Green
Hmm.
minutes and give a little bit less to Paul Millsap because he just seems a little bit done. I don't think Paul Millsap can play 30 minutes really effectively as much anymore. And I think he might be better than Jeremy Grant potentially too. Aaron Gordon is the
Wow.
thing. I mean, for Denver, I think because I don't think we saw what he was in Detroit like at any point of his career this season. What we've seen from Jeremy Grant, but I think Aaron
Yeah.
Gordon could be that good, and he's definitely. Everyone talks about how good of a defender he is. He's a high flyer. I'm very fucking terrified of Jokic, Aaron Gordon pick and rolls that could fucking happen, and
Hmm.
that's just scary to me to just
It,
see the first lob pass from Jokic to Gordon. It's just gonna be
yeah,
terrifying.
that will be something to see. Also, another thing why I like this move is Aaron Gordon. He's kind of like the case of a guy who his whole career, throughout his whole career, everyone has basically kind of said, "Dang, what could it be?" Basically with him. Not that he
Yeah.
wasn't doing well in Orlando, but it's just like he's kind of just in Orlando doing nothing, not playing meaningful basketball really, and seeing him go to a big time team in the Western Conference like this and get those opportunities for Denver to have big minutes guarding players like LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. He's exactly what this Nuggets team it needs, and we're going to finally really get a good idea of what Aaron Gordon can do because he'll be in some big games needing to do big things. And I'm very excited for that. I'm optimistic, but we'll certainly see.
Well, see the whole thing with Aaron Gordon, right, is they never played him at the four either
Which
because
is
Orlando
insane.
has like 80 bigs on that roster at any given point. Because
Josh,
obviously
you could
yeah,
argue that Aaron Gordon, like outside of like Draymond and maybe like a guy like Blake Griffin earlier in his career, is like the most obvious stretch four. Like
yes,
it's
absolutely.
so wild that they played him
It
at three.
is,
Sorry to
and
interrupt. Just
they no. That's exactly my point. Is and speaking of Draymond, is they people for years have been saying get him on another team. He could be Draymond Green if he wanted to be. Like if that's his ceiling basically. And I mean, I don't think he's going to live up to that necessarily because as we've talked about in the past, Draymond Green is insanely fucking good and honestly underrated at this
yeah,
point. How
just because
good
people hate
Draymond
him.
Green is. Yeah, and I understand that as with Patrick Beverly on my team too. Is it's just the same exact kind of scenario. Not to compare them because
Yeah,
obviously
easy,
Draymond Green
easy, easy.
isn't a completely. I'm just saying just based on like league wide opinion and
Hmm.
just because they're assholes basically. But anyways, back to Aaron Gordon. Finally, he gets to play the 4. I hope.
He'll be
I
playing
hope.
the 4.
Yeah, because I mean, I mean, between I guess him and Michael Porter Jr., they'll probably split time in the 3 and
Yeah.
4. But Porter to me is much more of like a 3.
Yeah, Porter can do 4, but like him as a 3
he can't play
isn't bad.
defense,
Aaron
so.
Gordon as a 3 to me is just not what you want to see.
Not at all. No, and
I don't like that.
And we'll talk more about Orlando. I kind of hate what they did overall.
Yeah, they had a tough day.
Yeah, it was just really dumb.
Good segue, because this is the most shocking move of the day for me, was the Orlando Magic sending Nikola Vucevic, to the Chicago Bulls for not that much. I'm going to pull up Woj's tweet really quickly here so I can get you the exact trade. But to me, what stood out about this trade was like, that's all it took to get Vucevic.
Yeah. It was 2 first-rounders and Wendell Carter Jr. with Otto Porter, who's just there for money purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, I do not think that's at all worth. They were asking, apparently earlier in the season is the thing, when the Celtics were calling and asking about him, the price was like James Harden level to the Nets. Like they were expecting I was expecting like at 5 first-round picks if Vooch was moved at all. And he wasn't. And I didn't think he was. That was the rumor at the end of it, is they were going to hold on to him because they just signed him to this deal.
And he's really freaking good. He's another guy like Aaron Gordon, where I guess he's different than Aaron Gordon because he has had just like, not that Aaron Gordon hasn't been productive, but Vucevic has been like a different type of productive. The dude's 24 and 10. He's a top 5 big center in the league, I would say. And I think they got a shit deal. If you think about, I think what they could have maybe gotten earlier in the year, or if they were smarter about this. But what I do think stands out to me is that this Bulls team now is no joke. And this is the whole season this year, I've come around on Zach LaVine. I was not a Zach LaVine hater. I just kind of, for most of his career, was like, okay, this guy's going to be a good stats, bad team guy. And then what I've seen this year, I think he can be more than that. And especially when you add in Vucevic, who is just as good as LaVine, or if not better. He's a little more, I don't know, they're right around the same level. But that pairing in pick and rolls, pick and pops will be lethal. You think about just 4 guys they can throw out there. You got Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Thad Young, and Vucevic. That's nothing to laugh about.
And Patrick Williams, too, actually.
And Patrick Williams, and Markkanen is still on the roster. So
yeah.
We'll see.
I'm surprised.
I think it's
the
great.
Most surprising thing. I agree with you. First of all, I think this is a fantastic move for Chicago. I mean, it's a perfect buy low. And I still am really curious why, because Boston might end up being a better pick this year in this draft than Chicago. But I guess if you trade Vucevic to Boston, maybe, I don't know, maybe that levels out. But I could very well see Boston finishing below Chicago in the standings. But I'm really surprised, though, that Markkanen wasn't the guy in this deal, and it was Wendell Carter, because, I mean, they're both kind of underwhelming prospects for Chicago, but Markkanen even more so.
I'm funny story about Wendell Carter at Summer League. When he was in Summer League, me and my dad sat next to his mom. Nice lady.
Oh, that's it? Oh,
yeah, that's it. She was nice.
I like Wendell Carter. No, Wendell Carter's great, but on the other hand, why the fuck did Magic get another fucking center? They have 3 centers on rosters still. Because I was like, oh, cool. When I saw Vooch moved, I was like, cool, Mo Bamba time, and Kem Birch. No, they got Wendell Carter as another young big, and I don't understand what they're doing. Do they see this as? I think they're giving up on Mo Bamba completely, which is also just way too soon. But
I think they've completely given up on him. And I mean, you also got to think about what's his name, Jonathan Isaac, who's been hurt. Yeah. He's good. He's phenomenal, a legit player. So I do think it's questionable that they bring in another big man.
Because again, they're
theoretically Jonathan Isaac,
the Aaron Gordon problem. Again,
Jonathan
they're going to have John Isaac play
Carter.
the 3.
He needs to play 4, and Carter could play the 5. That could be somewhat interesting. But the Magic have shown us that they don't do that.
We'll see.
Very smart.
We'll see. Yeah.
And then, next move, Josh. We're going to stay in the state of Florida. Houston sends Victor Oladipo to Miami for Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a draft swap. And I think the big winners of today have to be the Heat, and let me tell you why. Victor Oladipo is not the best player who was traded today. I think he's probably third. He's around there. At his height, though, he at one time would have been ranked number one out of this group. But what Miami did is Miami really wanted to add another piece, and they had some stuff to move, and they also wanted to clear cap space. And so you thought that they were going to go for Kyle Lowry, which they were very, very hard. But when the asking price on Kyle Lowry got too high, I know that they wanted Duncan Robinson, and then they also wanted Hero really, really bad. And if you're the Heat, why would you trade a 19, 20-year-old like Hero who just played big minutes in the playoffs for you and seems to be like a guy you'd want to have on your team in the future? And so they say, okay, we can't do that. And they essentially go get Victor Oladipo for nothing, for absolutely nothing. Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, a draft swap, that's nothing. You get Victor Oladipo to help you for the rest of this season and see what he's got left. And then obviously I think that Victor Oladipo wants to re-sign in Miami. He totally seems like a Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler type of guy. And so I think this was a great, great win for the Heat, not having to give up Robinson or Hero or even Kendrick Nunn like we had been hearing, or Dragic. So I think the Heat did a good job today. This Victor Oladipo thing it's no risk in a way, weirdly. And when you have a player of this caliber, I feel like there's a lot of times there's a big risk of him leaving, but it's just like them being able to keep those young pieces made this just a no risk for me. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's going to be boring, but I kind of agree with you once again. Even more so, the Oladipo actually works out in his off seasons in Miami, usually with Dwayne Wade or Heat organization people too. On top of that, he's been like wanting to go to Miami for years, basically. Finally gets his wish, and that's partly probably why Miami was able to get Oladipo so cheap, because they really gave up. I mean, Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk, who I'm not a fan of Olynyk really at all. And they also still have Trevor Ariza as well that they flipped Myers Leonard for. So
yeah, Myers Leonard was just waived by the Oklahoma City Thunder 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, his career is over.
Yeah, he's done. Yeah, and he can't go into streaming. Tough.
Yeah.
Dumbass.
Yeah, no, I like this move.
The Spurs Shams just tweeted this. This is at 2:15. This is when he tweeted this, West Coast time, that the Spurs have officially bought out LaMarcus Aldridge. So that confirms what we were thinking a few pods ago, Josh. How the fuck are they going to trade this guy? Who is going to trade for him?
Yeah, if Drummond was unmovable, there's no way LaMarcus Aldridge was going to get moved.
Per Woj, it seems that in all likely, Aldridge is going to go to Miami, which I think is interesting. But I mean, again,
replaces Kelly Olynyk immediately.
No risk. So I think that's a good move. Let's go. I want to talk to you about another thing. Two things in a row here that are similar. Lonzo Ball and Kyle Lowry both stay. Let's first start with Lonzo. Lonzo, I think that this was a great move keeping Lonzo. I actually really do like the chemistry between Zion and Lonzo. I think that is something going forward that the Pelicans could explore and could be very good. But you might have to pay him a lot this offseason. What do you think? And sorry to you and listeners, you might hear a little like knocking or banging. It's because the people above me are replacing their carpet, and they tried to send me some bullshit email saying that they were going to soundproof it, and they had an audio engineer coming in so no one could hear it. And I was like, don't bullshit me. Are you going to put like 8 feet of foam on every side of the apartment and to put in floors? I can hear every single time you walk, dumb shit.
Well, if it's on the ceiling, I don't understand.
Fucking
how
ridiculous.
That would...
They say, we're going to bring in this audio engineer, and I'm just like, bullshit. I call bullshit. Josh, Lonzo Ball, what do you think of him staying for this season, and what about the future? How much do you think he get paid? Let's talk about all that.
I mean, I agree with you. I don't think there was any rush to trade him immediately. Along with, I'll throw in John Collins as well, because I just think they're very good young talents that I just don't think you want to necessarily move off of them. Lonzo especially, he's shown flashes lately that he could be your franchise point guard in the future. However, though, if they don't want to pay him, if they don't want to give him like $25 million a year, which is probably around where he's going to want, I imagine. Maybe they're lucky and they get like a 24
for 80, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But if they're not going to pay him, this is still going to be a big mistake, because I think the market for Lonzo is probably the tastiest, arguably, because I think
the Knicks, Bulls, A lot of teams would go for. I mean, the
Yeah,
Clippers, even.
absolutely. Yeah, I think easily. I think he's going to get the money he wants.
Denver.
If the Pelicans aren't going to want to pay him, somebody's going to pay him the price he wants because
Mhm.
they're just going to be willing to pay him. And so that's the only thing is just financially, I just don't know if it makes sense. I get that you don't want to attach Lonzo necessarily if you're not positive you want him with this core. But I mean,
I
honestly,
don't see how you see like I'm not saying you see that, but I don't see that how the Pelicans would see that. I think he's a total fit for this
I
team
agree.
more so than
And
even Brandon Ingram.
I 100, and that was what I was right about to get into. Is eventually you might have to move off of Brandon Ingram potentially, and so I would much rather have Lonzo and Zion than I don't know just Brandon Ingram and Zion.
Yeah,
I
and
think.
we're saying this about Ingram not because he's not good; he's a good player, but it's just kind of like he's taking a lot of the late possessions from Zion, and I think that Zion is the best player on this team. So eventually, maybe they move off of Ingram because he's not even playing any defense too.
It's
He's
getting
gotten worse as a defender.
Yeah, it's getting to like the Embiid Simmons debate again of like trying to split
Here
up
we
one of
go.
them. And that's going to be dangerous. That's going to be completely toxic, especially because they haven't even gotten to the point where they're even playoff caliber good yet. So like I mean it's just the rumbling, this isn't going to end well. I'm telling you right now it's not going to end well with the whole New Orleans situation with Zion, Lonzo and Ingram. But I think though, regardless, just give Zion or give Lonzo the money he wants, and trade him later if you don't feel like that, because he's still going to be wanted. He's a young point guard with
Can't let him walk
tremendous
for
vision.
nothing.
Exactly. Because especially now, if you're not going to trade him now, you're just going to have to you have to pay him now, even if it is max money at this point. You have to pay him, which is going to be ridiculous.
But, other guy who stayed is Kyle Lowry. He stays in Toronto, and we know that the asking price was pretty high for Lowry. And Woj did tweet that he said in making trade offers for Kyle Lowry, teams had to take into consideration whether he would turn out to be a rental for the season or if they would be able to meet his contract expectations to stay in free agency. That impacted how far teams were willing to go on him. So it kind of sounds like Kyle Lowry was giving out no guarantees. If you bring him, he'll sign there. And if you're a team like the Heat, you're not going to trade Tyler Hero and some picks and mortgage your future for Kyle Lowry. I think Kyle Lowry's good, but he's a 35-year-old point guard. What is your takeaway on this? I mean, I just think the Raptors were asking for too much. People tried to get him.
I think the Raptors got too cute. Is I think the narrative there is because they thought they could leverage Lowry and more, and in all honesty, they don't need to trade him. I think they're weirdly fine with keeping Lowry for the end of the season, which is always just wild to me. That I thought. Yeah, go on.
Dude, if you think about the Eastern Conference playoff situation, especially with the play-in games, I mean, the Hawks won 6 or 7 games in a row and jumped to like the 4 or 5 seed. Like that's the Raptors have been injured. They are certainly a team. Like I don't know if the Raptors are healthy. I trust them more than the Hawks.
Absolutely,
teams like that. So, and I also think that it's probably tough for the Raptors to trade Kyle Lowry because he's the greatest Raptor ever. Probably he's their heart, and maybe there's other players like Kawhi's obviously better than him. But what he accomplished in Toronto, he's the fan favorite. So it's going to be tough to move on from that. And so one last ride, it seems like what they'll be doing in Toronto. However, staying with Toronto, the Trailblazers, we had been hearing that they wanted Aaron Gordon. They were involved in all this stuff. And Josh, I think we talked about it, but Aaron Gordon would have been just such an ideal fit there in Portland. They've
needed a 4 their entire
forever
stretch,
since LaMarcus Aldridge left. I remember when I was like, Kevin Love should go there. Blake Griffin, stuff like that.
Which Kevin Love's still on the table, honestly, just not this season.
Yeah, so we'll see. But Norman Powell is who the Trailblazers end up getting. Norman Powell, great offensive players, have been playing really well. To me, this is tough though, because while I do like Norman Powell, he's just another offensive first guard that's nothing crazy defensively, and that does not solve any of Portland's problems when guarding players like LeBron or Kawhi. They needed an Aaron Gordon. They needed that, not just 3-and-D. They needed that type of guy. And Norman Powell, Blazers will have more firing power, I guess. But To me, it wasn't that it was bad, like getting Norman Powell. It was just what you could have gotten, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Weirdly though, I mean, I'm sure this is like objectively an upgrade, but I really like Gary Trent Jr. I don't
He's playing
know.
well for them.
He has, and I'm really surprised that they moved off of him anyways, because he's also just a very young player, and I feel like they do just about the same thing, him and Powell. And Powell, this is Powell's like first season that I've seen him kind of really pop. I mean, he's been good for a while with
Yeah, I
Toronto
think it
for
was
their
like
whole.
midway through last year he popped a bit, and then it's obviously this season really shown out.
Yeah, but Gary Trent was one of the bubble's best performers and kind of continued that into next year, into this year, especially with CJ McCollum out as well. I thought Gary Trent was fantastic. So I don't really see this as, this is to me more of like a lateral move, I guess, to get Jordan Powell. And that still
Norman.
seemed Norman. Yeah, Jesus,
Yeah.
I've been calling him Jordan Powell all day.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I just think that you're giving up, I guess Rodney Hood wasn't part of their plans either, but you're also giving up another guy that, was in your rotation for him. And like I said, I'm sure Norman Powell's an upgrade than Gary Trent. They must view him as an upgrade or else they don't make this deal. But
dude,
I
think
just
about
really,
this. Credit
like
to the Raptors. They're trading Norman Powell at his peak value.
Absolutely.
So smart move there.
Smart move, yeah. I like Gary
up.
Trent, and I think he could play alongside Fred VanVleet in the future too. So I think that could be, if they do decide to move off Lowry, I think that could be pretty good.
Okay, let's go to your Clippers. They trade away Sweet Lou Will for Rajon Rondo. And before we talk about your Clippers, I would just like to say how freaking funny it is that the Atlanta Hawks, the move they made this trade deadline was to add a guy who can score and absolutely not play any defense. It is just so funny that that's what they like. Obviously, moving off Rondo wasn't a great fit there. But it's just so. It's just like there. You're okay. You're gonna go get Lou Will, the guy who is literally maybe the only guy in the NBA who's a worse defender than Trae Young, and it's tough. And Lou Will has sucked in the playoffs, and you need, as a Clippers fan, to remember that and calm down with the Lou Will hype. He's a great. That Drake song's great, but.
The one thing I will say to defend Lou, this has probably been his best defensive season I've seen from him in the past. So, and no, I'm being serious. He played good defense. They still hit him on shitty offensive players, but he played with a lot of effort, a lot of heart. But however, on the other end, offensively, this is also the worst season I've seen offensively from Lou Will, where I don't know if he's just lost it or whatever. But he's one of the most important Clippers, I think, probably in franchise history now, because just the Clippers' history is so sad. By default, he gets.
The thing with Lou Will, though, in the playoffs, it was like, he was a bad defender, but he even struggled offensively.
Yeah.
And so
I agree.
I like the move.
He could get a shot.
I don't know.
I do too.
Bet on playoff Rondo.
Well,
last year.
So here's the other thing too: is Lou Will said in, I think, an Instagram post too, is if he does get dealt this season, he's going to retire. He said he's done. He's over. So I wonder if that was part of the price too, is if he's just not going to play at all for Atlanta. But I feel like he's going to at least finish out the season.
Where that strip club that has the wings is.
Well, he's also, I think he's from Atlanta too. I'm not positive, but so like, I mean, it's his hometown, and I think it could be cool. But again, like I'm still like, I'm still really sad about it, because Rondo's not exactly what I had in mind, but he is probably the best pure point guard, I think, for the price that they were willing to pay. The Clippers are just really weird, where they're just to go on brief Clipper corner just for a second. They have this weird relationship with Luke Kennard. I don't know. Have you been following this at all?
Yeah, I have.
It's really
weird.
Fucking odd. He started out the season, he was like, 7th, 8th man, maybe off the bench. And then they just stopped playing him because he just got really cold for like a quick spell for about maybe like a 2-week stretch out of the rotation, DNPing every night. And then earlier this week against the Atlanta Hawks, he goes like 8 for 8, gets 20 points, is insanely good. And then he immediately jumps up in the rotation to like 7th, 6th man against the Spurs. Doesn't look good. Doesn't play the rest of the game. Plays like 6 minutes. They gave him like a 3-year extension.
Yeah, and Harrell was all salty about that.
Yeah, I don't fucking know what they're doing with Luke Kennard. I personally really like what I've seen from Luke Kennard, more so than like Reggie Jackson. I
Yeah.
personally, I just don't really like what Reggie Jackson. I think Reggie Jackson's a good player. I just what he does is a little toxic. I think to the clip to the whole flow of the game.
Mhm.
And again, that's why I think getting Rondo is huge because it's going to cut down on those Reggie Jackson minutes a ton. I hope, and probably he's going to immediately slot into starting point guard with Beverly out still. So I'm excited to see what a true. This is the first point guard the Clippers have had since Chris Paul. So I mean,
Yeah.
this is also
They needed a
very
point
very
guard.
exciting.
So we'll see
They
if
did.
Rondo can do that, or if it's just what version of Rondo are you gonna get? Are you gonna get last year's Laker Rondo, or and then like the Chicago like prime game Rondo, or are you gonna get the Dallas Mavericks Rondo or the Hawks Rondo? So we'll see. Next thing I wanted to talk about is Evan Fournier is headed from the Magic to the Celtics. The Magic really cleaning house. This isn't the biggest move. Obviously, I think Celtics fans wanted to make a bigger splash in this trade deadline because the team has really been
They
struggling.
they look
Um,
broken. Like
yeah, I
just
mean
watched the game against the Bucks. It was a
they're
2 point game in
bad.
the end, but they were bad that game. They looked
Kemba
terrible.
contract is terrible. They all hate Tristan Thompson,
Yeah,
so there's a whole thing there. Marcus Smart though does stay on the team, which is
very exciting.
heavily rumored that he was going to leave, and it was curious when I saw that like there's a lot of rumors. Obviously, he might get traded for Aaron Gordon, and to me, it was just like Marcus Smart and 2 first round picks is like how would like Marcus Smart is kind of like just as good as Aaron Gordon in a way. Like they're very close to me, at least I think. So I think it's nice that the Celtics keep him. He's the longest
I
tenured
agree.
Celtic. I think that's good. But
And he's the heart and soul of their team. I
yeah,
think like
they get Evan
he's the face.
Fournier from the
Mhm.
Magic. What do you? I think Evan Fournier can do some playmaking for the Celtics. A little fill in a little bit of what they're missing from Gordon Hayward not being there. I don't think it drastically moves the needle too much though at all. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is just a case of just another guy. I mean, which is big because they really. I don't even know what did the Celtics give back for that because I don't think it was
Just
like
took two
anything.
second round picks or something.
That's nothing. I would have
And
like I would
the
love this
Celtics
deal.
did they traded Daniel Tice to Chicago and got Mo Wagner.
Which I again I'll maybe we'll talk about that later. But I that whole the whole Wagner situation there and it's just so fucking weird to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the biggest what the fuck trade for me that I have written down. But yeah, no, I like Fournier a lot. He's just like he's just another guy, another scorer on this team. Can't really play defense. So this isn't exactly what they needed, but I think he's like another really good player. He's still got I think a couple years left on his deal. I'll have to check that for sure. But I think again it's just talent acquisition. It's just smart because they needed more proven veteran guys and a little bit less minutes to I don't know. It seems like unfortunately Neesmith has been kind of a bust for them. But I think that's probably just a case of them playing a rookie in a veteran rotation that they need real minutes from. So I imagine he's probably going to slot into that Neesmith maybe, and they just lost Samuel Ojale as well, who's I think that was that last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I imagine Fournier is going to come in and probably play pretty similarly to that. And it's
Yeah.
just again, it's just another guy, and I think it helps. I think it helps, but I agree. I don't. It still didn't fix the core problem.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and going on to the Tice thing is one of the stupidest trades. I mean, I like what
Yeah.
Tice brought to the table for the Celtics.
I did too. He
I
wasn't.
think
What
what
was wrong?
you're going to lean on Tristan Thompson now more? Like, what the hell are you doing? And Mo Wagner sucks. He sucks.
I actually like Wagner. Actually,
Ah.
he's having a really good year, and he's very young. I think the Celtics probably saw Wagner as very similar to how Tice plays and skill level.
I just would have kept Tice.
I agree, but I think also just age wise too, because I think what Wagner is probably like 5 years younger too as well,
Yeah.
and on a rookie deal still. That's my guess is why they did it. I don't mind. I mean I obviously would have rather swapped out like Tristan Thompson for
Mhm.
Wagner as if I was them. But I think maybe this might open the floor. Maybe I think not necessarily just Thompson, but I think Rob Williams I think is going to get a way bigger role too, especially. So
Yeah. They
that's
didn't have
much
to
more
move him,
exciting.
so that's good.
Yeah, 100%. So it might be a blessing in disguise. They didn't have to give off any. They really didn't trade off any major pieces, and they just swapped Tice with Wagner. But again, that's not with this. I think the Celtics needed to shake things up a little bit more to really be competitive. And they still have the massive trade exception from the Gordon Hayward deal that I think expires in the summer, so they still can use it.
Yeah, they need to use that.
But like, it's going to get to the point where this is going to be the roster. This window is going to be the roster basically, and there's not going to be much flexibility in that. So this is the last chance to get one more guy, and I don't think Fournier and Wagner are going to move the needle.
They're at the victim. They're like, whatever happens with Kemba is how the Celtics will go, I think. Tatum and Brown are continue to get better, but if Kemba is just a shell of himself and you're paying him all that money, it is going to be tough, especially when you lose Gordon Hayward for nothing, and you could have gotten some pieces there. What are you going to say? Also, they should have fucking kept Terry Rozier. That's what this whole 100%. Thing is proved.
That was a mistake too. I mean, and then that
was like the biggest mistake they made. Getting rid of
Terry I think the Gordon Hayward deal is not doing the sign and trade with Indiana is I think a little worse personally, because they got that was part of the Kemba deal too, was the Terry Rozier. They did a sign and trade for Kemba and Terry Rozier, so they basically swapped Rozier for Kemba, which on paper was smart. In retrospect, it was not, but like I like, you do that deal every time in the moment. I think Kemba's way better at that point than Terry Rozier was looking like.
Scary Terry though led them some good playoff runs.
He did. He was insane. I mean, he killed Eric Bledsoe, but it's Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah, he did. He did legitimately murdered Eric Bledsoe.
Wait, one last thing though. I was just gonna say is Kemba. Would you trade Kemba for, because he's going to approach this level of deal of John Wall and Russell Westbrook are going to be the names.
Well, I mean, I trade Kemba. What are you going to fucking trade him for?
Nothing. It's going to be, John Wall, Russell Westbrook probably is going to be the money. That's what I'm saying. So like, that's the thing that puts you into that kind of thing is, and I think
trade Kemba for Westbrook.
I think I would too.
I would take Westbrook out of those three.
That's really shitty, isn't it? Like, that's where we're at, especially too. And I think, and the worst part is, I think Boston has to throw in a pick for that deal. It's not a clean swap.
Mm-hmm.
Poor
Quickly
Kemba.
A bad contract. And folks, as you hear the knocking, I just want everyone, when you're listening to this podcast right now, say fuck you to the people who live above me. Like, the person hasn't even moved in yet, and they're changing the floors, and they have the audacity to tell me that they're looking forward to being a member of this community. Fuck you. Come listen to this shit. Like I have to.
They're changing the floors before they even move in?
Yeah. But don't worry, they had a special audio engineer who is going to cancel sound. It's this greatest society is one of the greatest society's technological achievements, but they're just using it to help people install floors in small apartments. The fuck? Get the fuck out of here. They've already made an enemy of me. All right. A guy who's going to get bought out and officially now, and who is going to be on, I would say, definitely a playoff team. I only see like one or two teams have a shot at him. Is Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond, I think, could be of value to the Lakers, definitely, to replace that JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard role. I do think that if you're the Nets, if you can, see if he's interested. I haven't heard the Celtics, but I do think that's interesting if they could somehow swing that. Josh, you seem to be confident that Andre Drummond is going to be headed to the Los Angeles Lakers. Do you want to say why?
I just think it's too much star power. It's already kind of rumored. It's out there, and I just think it's going to be hard to turn down just a spot at the Lakers. The Lakers are just one of the most historic franchises, and it's just going to be one of those things where you're just completely brainwashed. They need a star too, especially with Anthony Davis. That's going to be their pitch to him: is Anthony Davis, LeBron's out. You're our star player, our franchise player for the time being. Like, make your money, make your case. And so I think on top of that, this could wind up getting him in the next contract as well at a favorable price for him. So I just think, based on situations, I think it makes the most sense. However, I guess at the same time, if he bets on himself and it fucking just falls apart and the Lakers just suck with that, I mean, at the end, that's the risk you take. But the Clippers were also rumored to be interested as well. The Nets, the Knicks, the Celtics were actually one of the shortlist teams, which, again, if you could replace Tristan Thompson with Drummond, that's also very nice. But I just think the Celtics are too much of a dumpster fire to probably do anything about it.
Two things. Well, I do think that the hype or the speculation of where Drummond will end up going has led him to be a bit massively overrated.
Absolutely.
Because the one thing we need to remember, it's like, oh my God, these teams could add him. He literally got bought out because no one would trade for him. We need to keep that in mind. And I think it's a nice fit for the Lakers and Clippers and stuff like that. But we do need to keep in mind when talking about Andre Drummond, there are going to be times in the playoffs where he is a dinosaur out there and you cannot have him defensively. That is why he is getting bought out. We need to remember that. It's not like, oh shit, the team is bringing on a former All-Star. I would say slow the brakes on that. Slow the brakes, Josh.
The one thing I'd say is it's not that he's not a good player and that's why he's getting bought out is because he sucks. I mean, obviously, if he was good enough, it's just a price for what he does. It's not worth $30 million a year. But like, I would
he is a dinosaur though. He's a dinosaur.
Yeah,
he will get like
if I mean he
needs to be a JaVale Dwight role from last year, which is not
absolutely
big. He can't be this guy that you're expecting to go play 30, 35 minutes a game because in the playoffs, Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, Luka, Kawhi, they're all just gonna ISO on him all day long. So
agreed. And that's also why I think Lakers make sense too, because he doesn't have to be like that's still a very, very small role when it comes time to the playoffs as well. Where again, like the best case scenario is he honestly is better than JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard, but not much better than what they were for them. I mean, it's going to be Clint Capella, basically. He's just going to be Clint Capella, where occasionally he's not going to be able to play. Maybe there's going to be a game, though, where he's just too good that you kind of have to leave him in and kind of deal with the consequences, too. But, I mean, that's the upside I think Drummond might give you because he is a good player, and he's still pretty young. But, like, you're right, though. I agree with you.
If you're New York, Boston, or Brooklyn, there is a part of me, though, that does think you might try and push a bit hard, especially if you're Boston, but who the fuck knows, like we said. If you're feeling a little like, oh shit, we're gonna have to go against Joel Embiid in the playoffs, hoping he comes back healthy.
You need size.
And although Joel Embiid does own Andre Drummond, like lives rent free in his head, if I'm the Celtics, I'd rather throw Drummond at Embiid than have to throw fucking Tristan Thompson and Robert Williams. I like Robert Williams. I just think he's not filled out anywhere near to be taking on that task.
Absolutely. It's same thing with Brooklyn too. Is you need a big guy to play against Giannis and again Embiid as well. I think that's also the dream destination. I think if you're an objective basketball fan, I think the Nets. I don't actually love the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers make sense a lot, but I don't think he wants to necessarily do that per se. Just be Dwight Howard.
Yeah,
but we'll see. Yes, I don't know. I don't even begin to know what Drummond is thinking and feeling at this point. But the Nets would be scary because I think that's like the ultimate pick and roll partner for Harden, and there's no way that he gets like his role. You absolutely are positive what his role is if he goes to Brooklyn. Like he's not going to have the ball like at any crucial point, and maybe even not even be on the floor at any crucial point because Joe Harris is going to play over him.
Yeah, definitely. A few moves, a few last couple things before we wrap up this special trade deadline edition of the Pineapple Couch. JJ Redick is headed to Luka and Porzingis in Dallas to join the Mavericks. This is just a move I think that the Mavericks wouldn't have had to make if they didn't stupidly trade Seth Curry. That's my take on this.
Yeah,
JJ's old. I love JJ Redick. We'll see what he can do. He's old. It's defensively he's tough, but he can still shoot. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he's basically just going to be Seth Curry, and this you're right. It's just them remedying their past mistake. However, I do still like Josh Richardson though. I think he's been playing pretty well recently as well. So I guess it's another guy. I'd much rather have Seth Curry though than JJ Redick at this point of their careers though. But I agree with you.
And speaking of Seth Curry, George Hill is going to go to the 76ers to join them.
Love this move.
I think this is as excited as I can be about a George Hill move because it's obviously not that exciting. We've actually seen this. Like I feel like I've seen George Hill get traded at the trade deadline like 4 or 5 times in the last 6 years, and every single time it's like, holy shit, here comes George Hill. And it's like it didn't work with the Cavs. I'm pretty sure it didn't work with the Bucks. But
it's good for the Bucks. I mean, obviously, like team success wise, you're right. But like he was very good in whatever he did for any of those teams really that he was traded for. But
does
you're
this change anything for the 76ers to you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I still like Brooklyn over them. For instance, even Milwaukee,
Hmm.
probably. I don't know. Milwaukee and Sixers are like a really
Milwaukee has
close.
been looking really
It's
good.
it's scary. Actually, what's fun is the Clippers play both of them this weekend, so
Woo.
that's gonna be a really fun set of games if you're interested in those. But yeah, I think this is a really good move. If they couldn't get Lowry, I mean, it's not like the next best thing. It's like the fifth best thing is George
Yeah,
Hill. Like George Hill, he's a solid. It's more shooting. He's one of the best shooters in the NBA
they
still.
didn't want to give up Tybal,
Yeah,
and
he's great. I don't blame
I
him.
don't mind them betting on him, because I think that was probably a big holdup in the Kyle Lowry scenario. So you're able
And
to add a guy no risk. Um,
yeah, we'll
can
see
only help you.
because I'm wondering if he will slot into like a traditional starting point guard for this team too, and maybe if that opens up things for Ben Simmons where he doesn't have to be the primary ball handler on top of that too, could be really interesting. But I
Yeah,
don't necessarily think George Hill is at that level that they see him as
yeah.
to be that kind of guy. But
It's
like
tough to have
off
Ben
the bench,
Simmons off ball though, too.
it
I,
is.
I
It
think
is,
he'll
but
come off the bench, but we'll see.
yeah, I 100% agree. But I still think I actually think Ben Simmons off ball could actually be very dangerous as a cutter and just focus entirely on defensively as well. In this
Mhm.
situation, could be really fucking scary if he doesn't have to worry about getting guys going. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, his coach is Doc Rivers, and Doc Rivers, the last 5 to 6 years in that run with the Clippers, you know what? He did a great job of taking teams to the next level. I mean, he almost got to the conference finals so many times.
yeah, see that's the one thing, right? Is that's why you're probably do you bet on Budenholzer, who's the king of playoff collapses, or Doc Rivers, the king of playoff
I
collapses?
have
Who do you
neither. That's not my Eastern Conference Finals. I have Brooklyn, Miami.
Miami after the Depot trade, or even before that, you had Miami.
Before I had that, I liked what I've been seeing. The thing, Miami was getting a lot of shit earlier this year, but they were so fucking hurt.
Yeah, with COVID too, they had a bunch of
Yeah.
guys. Like
So it's
Butler
just,
lost like 20 pounds from COVID. Like that's ridiculous. You can't fucking
yeah.
and Hero and Robinson have both been a little underwhelming this season
Mhm.
too. Their shooting's been a little bit down, but I imagine they're gonna get going. They're too good.
Yeah.
I feel like. Yeah, and
Yes,
if they're
those two
keeping,
is my favorite.
you think they keep Iguodala too? I was gonna say, or do you think he gets bought out?
I thought what was going to happen was that in one of the deals they made, it could have been the Oladipo deal, or if they went after Lowry, I thought he was going to get included in some way and essentially just get bought out and maybe go to the Warriors or something. But at this point, I think you keep Iguodala if you're the Heat.
Yeah,
You
I
lost
agree.
last season or from last year. Keep Iggy.
100. And then I was gonna bring up the Marcus Chris deal as well because how do you feel about that? Because I kind of like Marcus Chris, but Marquise Chris, but
Yeah,
he's
I mean, he had broken leg. He was exciting last year. He was so young when he was drafted, and he does have somewhat of upside, but the Warriors did this for luxury tax reasons.
yeah.
I don't think, unfortunately, I would like to see Marcus Chris have a successful career. I unfortunately, however, don't think this trade matters at all. Like, I don't.
No,
We might have
I
seen the end
kind
of
of
Marquise
agree.
Chris. So,
Yeah, I mean Pascal and Looney and obviously Wiseman I think are better than him and
oh yeah,
played over him in the rotation. It was just Marquise Chris was like one of the guys in the Warriors team last year was
yeah,
what I remember.
good in 2K though.
So yeah, yeah, but it's I mean again though I guess you don't want to bring back the guy that what was the record last year 15 and what
50,
47
15 and 50, I
50.
thought.
Oh God, Jesus Christ,
Tough.
dude.
But 3 rings, Josh. 3 rings.
3 rings. Yeah, no. Hey, I mean, you can endure it. Listen, the Clippers have been shit for most of my life. So,
All of your life.
oh,
You're not shit until you've been to a Western Conference Finals, Josh.
all right, that's fair. I'm still optimistic with the
I
Lakers
think
out.
though that the way the Clippers are starting to get kind of roasted again is good because you know what the Clippers aren't good at being like favorites, front runners. Because last year I was pretty fucking confident the Clippers were going to win it all. Even going into the playoffs, I was like, "There's no way." And so
Yeah,
that
it's
when
Paul
they're
George
being
playoff.
doubted, I like the idea of Kawhi being doubted. We'll see what
He's
Paul George will do.
That's the last thing on Clipper Corner I wanted to bring up is they've been
Clippers
actually
corner.
on a
Jesus
fucking
Christ.
they've been on a fucking roll lately. The Clippers, they've looked really good since the Atlanta game. I mean, it's only been 2 games, but
Yeah, they had a crazy
Kawhi,
2-game run.
But listen, Kawhi looks. This is the best I've seen Kawhi all season is right now. And if he, it might have just been playing against San Antonio. He always just plays pissed off, but Kawhi looks fucking locked in, and should be terrifying to the rest of the league. So
I mean, that's why everyone thought they were going to win last year. Was Kawhi.
100%. 100%.
Last move before we get on out of here, JaVale McGee to the Nuggets. This is basically filling like the Mason Plumlee role last year on the Nuggets, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's backup center.
Yeah, I think.
I like it.
I like it.
JaVale McGee returns.
Dude, he did good for the Warriors. He obviously did well for the Lakers. I like this move for Denver. I think Denver.
Does he have? Is it 4?
No, he's got like 3.
3? Is it because
he has 2 with the Warriors and 1 with the Lakers.
Okay. I was gonna say if he had 4 rings.
JaVale McGee had 4 rings, I would be pretty pissed off.
I would be. I just in general. No, they got rid of Isaiah Hartenstein, who I wasn't super great for them, and also they RJ Hampton also we forgot to mention earlier in the Aaron Gordon deal. I'm sure you did, but I didn't talk about I liked RJ Hampton a lot, but obviously he just wasn't good enough to crack the Denver rotation. No, I like this JaVale McGee backup center role. Actually, I think it'll be very good. This is what he's destined to be in this NBA.
Shout out to me really quick.
Sure.
For 2 things. 1, LeBron James got injured. Credit to me for not being a giant asshole on social media. Credit to me for that. And 2, before the season started, I said that we would have Nets, Nuggets, and Jokic would be MVP. It looks pretty damn good right now.
It
looks pretty damn good. What were you gonna say though? Sorry I was giving myself credit for not.
No. Yeah, I'll give you credit too. I will say it was Joel Embiid until he got hurt though. And then LeBron got hurt too, which I still think Jokic should have probably gone over LeBron anyways for the record. I
agree.
But I mean, LeBron was going to be in the discussion and maybe take off some votes from Jokic because again, the media votes are going to always lean LeBron.
James.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is because I kind of teased it earlier because I didn't mention it. This is the worst trade of the day for me because I just wanted to do this one because I did the best trade earlier with Aaron Gordon. I still love that deal on paper. The Wizards trading Mo Wagner and Troy Brown to Chicago for Chandler Hutchinson and Daniel Gafford. No picks.
Easy what you say about Mr. Hutchinson, former Mission Viejo High School Diablo. Friend of the program.
I do not mean to insult either of those players, but I just mean that like Wagner and Troy Brown are much better than both of them, though. Much better.
Chandler could be
they're young guys.
You see, Josh, you're just making enemies with the one professional athlete we know on the couch. You're just making enemies.
Yeah,
come on.
I'm sorry, but to me, like, I don't understand why doesn't Chicago throw in a pick for this? This like I don't know why Washington's doing a clean swap of Wagner. I think
dumb.
They had value with Wagner, and then they just get rid of it.
You are higher on Wagner than anyone in the world.
I know, and you know the funniest things. I hate Wagner, like just as like for
I just don't care. I just don't think he's that good.
No, I think he's
feelings about Mo Wagner. That's crazy.
He just seems.
He's an Michigan basketball.
I don't love Michigan basketball. Let's just say, but right. I don't not like.
Shout out to the fucking Pac-12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
been rooting for Pac-12. 4 out of the 16. Evan Mobley is the best player in the country by far.
I still like Cunningham. I'm
Evan Mobley, guy, dude. That guy is freaking.
I understand. I understand completely. I just think Cunningham's going to be better than him. Is the thing.
We'll see. We'll see.
As a ball handler, I think he's got the path early, and I think he's going to wind up on OKC potentially too, which could be really cool to just go Oklahoma State to Oklahoma City. So
that's GA.
Yeah, I think that's an electric backcourt. I think that's going to be fun if that does happen.
Well, we'll do some sort of mock draft or where we draft out the players this year for sure. But that is going to do it for episode 86, our NBA trade deadline special. Josh, a pleasure as always. To the listeners, thank you for listening. We will be back next week with some more pods. God bless. See you next time.